railways between Junction 3 and Junction 2 are experiencing congestion with delays stretching to 20 minutes. On the trains, the Gatwick Express currently has no service. Chiltern Railways has disruptions between Stratford-upon-Avon, Dorridge and Birmingham Moor Street. Remember to plan your journey accordingly. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
There's 2 weeks remaining in our latest, greatest giveaway. You could be in the driving seat of this Benamar Primera motorhome. This luxurious home from home comes with all the mod cons. Plus, you can use it with your current driving licence. We'll also boost your bank account with a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend on anything you like. It only takes one entry to become a winner. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
5 hosts, 5 opinions, 5 fearless debates,
5 unfiltered takes on the day's news.
5 reasons not to be anywhere else on Saturday night.
This is the Saturday 5.
You got me good there. Britain's biggest Saturday night TV show.
It's not a bad brand.
Yeah. Uncensored.
Very, very racy tonight.
On the unpredictable.
What does she say? Can you translate it for us?
And always entertaining.
And how can a country go from being led by William Wallace
Saturday nights from 6 p.m. only on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
You're going to want to stay tuned, trust me.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Very, very good evening to you and welcome to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubry. Coming up on tonight's show. Any moment now, MPs will be voting on the third reading of the government's controversial Chagos Islands deal. There's that man you thought you'd forgotten about, Jeremy Corbyn. We'll be going live to the Palace of Westminster to hear from Reform UK leader Nigel Farage. And meanwhile,
they told me I was under arrest. But because I was just so disgusted that I went nuts. I was absolutely infuriated. I said, do you know how you look to America? Do you know what America thinks of Britain at the moment?
Huge breaking news in this past couple of hours. The Metropolitan Police has sensationally dropped its probe into Graham Linehan, and he will be joining me on the show in just a moment's time for his first interview since this astonishing breaking news came out. I'll also be joined by a lawyer who argues that the West Midlands police decision to bow to the mob and ban Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from Aston Villa is against the law. Plus, as Prince Andrew could become the first member of the royal family to be investigated by police for more than 20 years, with Virginia Giuffre's memoir out tomorrow, I'll be joined by the legendary royal journalist Tom Bauer. That's all to come on tonight's show, but first is your latest news headlines with Katie Bauer.
Martin, thank you and good evening. The headlines at 7:01. And we start tonight with that breaking news. The Metropolitan Police will no longer investigate non-crime hate incidents, according to a spokesman. The move comes after it was announced today that comedian Graham Linehan would face no further action over 3 gender-critical tweets. The Met said that the decision to no longer investigate such incidents will provide clearer direction for officers. In a statement, the force said that Commissioner Sir Mark Rowley doesn't believe officers should be policing toxic culture war debates, with current laws and rules on inciting violence online leaving them in what he calls an impossible position. Non-crime hate incidents are incidents that do not count as crimes, but are perceived to be motivated by hatred towards certain characteristics, such as race or gender. Elsewhere today, a palace source has told GBNews that allegations against Prince Andrew should be examined in an appropriate way. The Metropolitan Police is actively looking into the allegations that he asked his taxpayer-funded bodyguard to dig the dirt on his sex accuser, Virginia Giuffre. It follows revelations in her memoir alleging Andrew's team even tried to hire internet trolls to hassle her online. Today, Downing Street would not be drawn on whether Parliament should pass legislation to strip Prince Andrew of his titles. The Prime Minister's official spokesman said that the question of legislation was a matter for the palace in the first instance and that ministers supported the judgment of the King regarding Andrew's titles. Andrew denies all allegations. The King has visited Manchester and to that synagogue targeted in a deadly terror attack earlier this month. His Majesty was greeted by Rabbi Daniel Walker at the Heaton Park Hebrew congregation, where flowers and tributes now mark the spot of the deadly assault. Two worshippers, Adrian Dolby and Melvin Kravitz, were killed when an attacker armed with a knife and fake suicide belt tried to storm the synagogue on Yom Kippur. 3 more people were seriously injured before police shot the attacker dead within minutes. US President Donald Trump has met with Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese at the White House. The two leaders have discussed AUKUS, the joint treaty between Australia, the US and the UK. The Australian Prime Minister said he was hoping to take the partnership to the next level. President Trump and Prime Minister Albanese also signed a critical minerals agreement and discussed military equipment. The US President went on to comment on China, saying that he expects to work out a fair trade deal with President Xi. Also, during that press conference, President Trump said that he does not think Ukraine will win in its war with Russia. It comes as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky will travel to London to attend a meeting on Friday of the Coalition of the Willing. And Amazon says it has fixed the original problem that caused a major internet outage this morning, but that full recovery to all sites will take more time. More than 1,000 companies have been hit by the outage affecting Amazon's cloud system. Apps including Snapchat, Duolingo and even UK banks like Lloyds and Halifax have all been caught up in the chaos. The web service said that they were dealing with significant error rates at one of its main data centres in the US. The outage has triggered a wave of complaints online, with users warning the internet's gone dark. Those are your latest GB News headlines. Now let's go back to Martin.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are, online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you, Katie, and welcome to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Dorby. Now, any moment now, MPs are set to vote on the government's controversial Chagos Island deal for its third reading. Live pictures there on your screens from the House of Commons. Now, Reform UK leader Nigel Farage will be addressing the Commons any moment now, and of course, we'll bring you that live as it happens. But first, amidst the news that Graham Linehan has sensationally had his charges dropped against him by the Metropolitan Police Force earlier on today, the force has also said that it will no longer investigate so-called non-crime hate incidents altogether. Is that a double whammy for free speech? Well, we'll be speaking to Graham Linehan himself in just a moment's time. But first, I can think of no one who has campaigned harder or for longer on this issue than the founder of the Free Speech Union, Lord Toby Young, who joins me in the studio. And I'm also joined this evening by GB News' senior political commentator, Nigel Nelson. Lord Young, you must be very celebratory at this, a totemic case, a case that shamed Britain around the world. It was spoken about by J.D. Vance, by Donald Trump. Justice at last for Graham Linehan.
Yes, I mean, the champagne corks are popping at the FSU's headquarters. We have been representing Graham. We put together a top legal team to challenge his arrest by the Metropolitan Police for 3 tweets, and today we learnt that our team's been successful. The Met have dropped all charges against Graham. He's been NFA'd. No further action is going to be taken against him. So that was the first victory of the day. We were incredibly pleased about that, very happy on Graham's behalf. And then a second victory. The Metropolitan Police announced just a couple of hours ago that they're going to stop investigating non-crime hate incidents altogether, which is a tremendous victory. We've been campaigning against the police acting like the paramilitary wing of The Guardian almost since the Free Speech Union was set up in 2020. So to finally see the country's biggest police force announce that they're no longer going to be investigating non-crime hate incidents is fantastic. But it's Al Alamein, it's not D-Day. We now have to persuade every other police force in the country to follow the Met's example, and the Met does set an example, I think, to other police forces, so hopefully that will start to happen. But they've also said they're going to continue to record, the Met are going to continue to record non-crime hate incidents for intelligence purposes.
Why?
This has long been their argument that it provides useful intelligence, it shows patterns of where hate crimes might occur. This is the kind of rationale for recording. I mean, I've no real issue with the recording of them, provided they don't show up in enhanced criminal records checks. If you apply for a job as a teacher or a carer, something that requires an enhanced DBS check, they're called, non-crime hate incidents can show up at the discretion of police constables on your criminal record and prevent you getting a job. That is to say, I mean, it's quite unbelievable. You cannot get a job as a teacher or a carer because you've committed a non-crime, which is completely preposterous. So that's the next really important battle, to make sure they stop showing up on DBS checks. And we're not talking about a trivial number here, Martin. I mean, at the most conservative estimate, 133,000 NCHIs have been recorded in England and Wales alone since 2014. And according to Policy Exchange, the police are spending 60,000 hours every year on this nonsense. So that's what 660,000 police hours have been spent on non-crime hate incidents since 2014. And to think they're wasting their time on this trivia, on hurty words on Twitter, when they could be investigating real crimes, the number of real crimes that go unsolved, burglaries, auto theft, muggings, why aren't they focusing on that? I think the public want them to do that, and I think the penny has finally dropped.
The penny has finally dropped, but is victory truly yours? Because the Metropolitan Police they've gone first up the ladder, if you like, but the other police forces across the nation, are you hoping they're going to follow suit?
I'm hoping they will follow suit. In the House of Lords last week, I announced that I would be tabling an amendment scrapping NCHIs, an amendment to the Crime and Policing Bill, which had its second reading in the Lords on Thursday. And Lord Hogan Howe, a former Metropolitan Police Commissioner, is co-sponsoring that amendment. And Lord Herbert, the chair of the College of Policing, he contributed to that debate, and he said that the College of Policing was going to be recommending, I think, that the NCHI regime is scaled back. He referred to a report that's just been done, a review carried out on behalf of police chief constables across the country, which has declared NCHIs not fit for purpose. So the impression you get from all these different sources, from senior police officers, leadership within the police force, is that NCHIs have had their day. They aren't much longer for this world. And I think if the police do decide they want to continue to record something like NCHIs for intelligence purposes, they'll be rebadged as something else. The important thing is to make sure they don't show up and prevent you getting a job when you're forced to do an enhanced criminal records check.
Thank you, Lord Young. Stick with us. Nigel Nelson, going to bring you in now. A victory for common sense, and it's one that should be replicated by every police force across the land.
I think that's right. However, I mean, I do think that non-crime hate incident recording is important. I tend to agree with Toby not to actually appear on a job application at a later date. But the whole point of the exercise, they were introduced in 2005 as a recommendation of the inquiry into the Stephen Lawrence murder. And if they're used for intelligence purposes, for checking to see if there's any chance of these things escalating into something more serious, then they perform a useful function in sorting out where community tensions might be. So from that point of view, they're probably quite good.
But then social media came in and they were completely weaponised and abused. We've got to the point now where people can have a criminal record for saying something offensive. It might have started out as a good idea, it became a terrible one.
Well, I mean, if it's a non-crime hate incident, they won't have a criminal record for that. If you move on to the grave...
They can show up, they often do.
Well, that's why I was saying I agree with Toby, that they should not show up. They're non-crime. It's not a crime, so
why record them at all?
They shouldn't show up on...
Why record non-crimes at all? Record actual crimes.
The reason for recording it is it gives you a picture of what is happening in communities, and so
does real crime.
If you, well, I mean, this could actually prevent real crime. If you see tensions escalating, the argument would be that you would see a crime on the horizon which would be much more serious, and you'd be able to nip it in the bud. So that's the point of them, provided they're used properly.
Toby Young.
Well, the police maintain that they are a useful intelligence-gathering device. And I think we have to respect the operational independence of the police if they find these records useful, provided there's no possible way they can show up in an enhanced criminal records check when you apply for a job, then I don't think it's worth dying in a ditch over that particular principle. The essential thing is that they stop wasting all these hours investigating reports of non-crime hate incidents. They stop, I think, indiscriminately recording reports of hate crimes which turned out not to be crimes as NCHIs. I mean, if they're going to be useful for intelligence-gathering purposes, they have to exercise their discretion and their common sense about what they record. At the moment, they're recording far too much, which is why we have, at a bare minimum, 133,000 on the police national database.
Lord Young, the battle may be over for Graham Linehan, but the war isn't. And you have further plans to clear his name and take action against the Met. Tell us about that.
Yes, so with this team, this top legal team we've assembled, the next step now is to sue the Metropolitan Police for wrongful arrest, amongst other things. I think the only way to stop the police overreacting to vexatious reports of hate crimes by woke activists is to make sure they pay a price when they overreact in this way. I mean, they made Graham's life miserable. They held him in a cell for 12 hours. He was greeted on his arrival after a long transatlantic flight by 5 armed police officers. His blood pressure spiked when he was in that cell to such an extent he had to be rushed to A&E. That shouldn't be happening. To stop it happening, we have to make sure the police pay a price for this kind of excessive, dogmatic, Stasi-like behaviour.
Graham Linehan will be joining us later on in the show. Just to conclude, if I could, Lord Toby Young, this has been a very, very difficult fight for him. It's been an injurious fight to him for his personal life, his professional life, his reputational standing, and indeed his health.
Yes, and I hope he'll be able to tell himself now that this long war I've been waging against trans rights activists, against children being encouraged to self-mutilate, the whole gamut of issues he's been doggedly campaigning against, it has cost him enormously. But I hope he can now take some solace from the fact that because of his principled stand, because he's stood up to the Met on this issue, this ridiculous arrest, he has at least persuaded the Met to say what they've said today. They're no longer going to be investigating NCHIs. That's a huge victory, and he deserves a lot of the credit for that.
Nigel Nelson, final word to you. Is that where we're at now? If people's lives are going to be hounded, their reputation left in tatters, their entire existence staring into an abyss, the only way to rectify this is to sue the police, to make them stop?
Yeah, I'm not entirely happy about that. Reason being is that I don't think that the police in this particular case acted wrongly. So what Graham Linehan...
So they acted in the right way. 5 geezers with machine guns for 3 tweets.
Everyone keeps going about the machine guns. These were at Heathrow Airport. Everyone carries a machine gun at Heathrow Airport. If I was arrested in the House of Commons over the road, it would be with a cop with a machine gun. So I don't think that's a major thing. The point here is that Graham Linehan put a tweet out which, on the face of it, incited violence. He was talking about punching trans people in the testicles.
Yeah,
so
and that's the joke.
Exactly.
It's
so
a joke.
If you take it literally...
They're women with testicles.
If you take it literally...
That's the point.
If you take it literally, it's an incitement to violence. If you take it figuratively, it is quite clearly a joke. Now, in this case, what are the police meant to do? And what Mark Rowley, the Met Commissioner, says is they were put in an impossible position. The words on the surface of it, broke the law. We all know that was a joke, and this is where some common sense should have come into play.
Toby, final word to you. Do you buy this idea, the police are just acting on bad law? The police have a choice. They didn't have to arrest Graham Linehan.
No, they didn't have to do it. And to Nigel's point, I don't think they needed to investigate him and interrogate him for 12 hours to figure out it was a joke. They could have exercised a bit of common sense and realised that beforehand.
Lord Toby Young, superb as ever, and a huge victory for the free speech union today. Very well done to you, Nigel Farage, superb. I know you're with me for the rest of the show. Now, just a moment's time, I'll be joined by a human rights lawyer who claims the decision to ban Israeli fans from Villa Park could be against the law. That's next.
You want to know what's really going on in the corridors of power? Labour don't know what to do with you half the time, and that makes you quite lethal in the chamber. Get behind the headlines with Chopper's Political Podcast. Join me, Christopher Hope, as I sit down with the great and the good of British politics. We'll see where this ruling takes us. These are the stories shaping our nation. Chopper's Political Podcast, available now on all platforms. Listen in and stay ahead.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Bold. They are under no illusion.
Ray.
Are you a human trafficker?
Boundless. I've had enough of the nonsense, and I'm not afraid to say it.
Don't get this on the BBC.
Every weeknight, I tear through the headlines.
The smell of gasoline. Should we be worried about it?
From Westminster madness to cultural war chaos.
What I'm going to do now, they are throwing things out the car as we speak.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubry. Now, last Friday, it was the West Midlands Police Force's decision to ban Maccabi Tel Aviv fans from their team's Champions League match against Aston Villa on November the 6th. And, of course, that sent shockwaves not only through Westminster but around the world, with the government intervening in a decision, and a U-turn is perhaps expected later this week. But my next guest has claimed this decision actually amounts to a breach of the law. Yes, this decision may well breach the Equality Act. And I'm joined now by the human rights lawyer Fadi Farhat, as well as GB News' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. Fadi, welcome to the show. The decision that rocked the footballing world, I still can't get my head around it. I go to football matches that get quite tasty. The police surround the fans, they walk them in, they walk them out, jobs are good. And this instance, though, they decided to crumble to local parliamentarians, politicians, pressure groups, the threats of protest, and they banned those fans. Tell GB News Tonight viewers why you think that's illegal.
Yes, thank you. I thought, as soon as it came out, I thought it was a breach of the Equality Act. Section 29(1) of the Equality Act prevents a service provider, in this case the service is entertainment in the form of a football match, from discriminating against a particular group on the basis of certain protected characteristics, which include race and religion. Now, I know people are going to be saying, this is a football match, it's football fans, what's this got to do with equality, etc. In most cases, it wouldn't apply because, of course, if you're dealing with Liverpool fans, Real Madrid fans, Man United fans, Barcelona fans, Bayern Munich, those teams and clubs have a global fan base where their fans come in all shapes and sizes, race, religion, colour, linguistic groups, etc. The Israeli Premier League and Maccabi Tel Aviv is not a club with a global fan base. Its club is, perhaps 100%, Jewish Israeli. And so we would be then excluding them on the basis of nationality or religion just because they are Jews or Israeli. And unfortunately, the Equality Act, Section 29, doesn't have a security get-out clause. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Although the Act goes back to 2010, the 2010 Act consolidated several pieces of legislation. Its origins go back to the Race Relations Act of 1965, introduced by Harold Wilson's Labour government. And at the time, when that legislation, which is the precursor to the Equality Act, was introduced, at that time, it was against the backdrop of black people being denied entry into clubs and dance halls. And the administrators of those dance halls used to say, well, it's not because we don't like black people, it's only because we can't guarantee their safety. There may be a riot. And the Labour government said, nope, you cannot do that. You cannot use security and safety to exclude people from services. It's no different now. We've gone back full circle, and yet it's surprising that those on the left are not pointing this out and actually saying we don't want to return to the 1960s. And actually, if we set this, and I say this as a non-Jew, as a non-Israeli, no skin in the game as such, but on a point of principle, because you reap what you sow. And really, what's going to happen, do we want a situation whereby the organisers of Wembley Stadium say, right, we don't want to have ethnic minorities or Muslim people come to our games because we cannot guarantee their safety against ethno-nationalists? In other words, this type of reasoning is a double-edged sword, and it's a slippery road down the gutter.
I've got a wry smile about my face here because isn't it ironic, Nigel Nelson, that the Labour Party introduced legislation to protect ethnic minorities in case they're in trouble, in case they cause trouble. Here we are now. They've been hung by their own petard.
Yeah, I'm curious about this on the basis that would the Equalities Act apply if it turns out that the minority you're talking about, in this case Jewish fans, actually were violent? I mean, you
can't predict violence before it occurs.
Well, certainly that they do have a record of some thuggishness, a certain amount of racism that has happened in the past. And the bit I'm failing to understand from Fadi is that do you exempt then a particular ethnic group if they really are a threat to safety? I'm not saying they are, because it hasn't been explained exactly what this threat to safety is.
Surely, if I may intervene, that's like saying a few people from Muslim backgrounds have been violent in the past, therefore it's not safe to have any of them there. It's group identity. Football fans...
You're talking about football fans
of one club come in all shapes and sizes. You can't condemn an entire fan base.
But that's why we have football banning orders. So that's why you have to go against the individual where that fan base is deemed violent. You have to have the intelligence exchange to see the individuals, identify them as much as possible by getting UEFA involved as to what intelligence they have with Maccabi Tel Aviv.
Keep out the bad apples, not the club.
Yeah, and that is not a perfect exercise. Some people are going to slip through the net, inevitably. But the way to do it is to target through the individual accountability, not some sort of collective accountability for a group.
Because if you go back in time to the times where hooliganism was called the English disease, we saw tournament after tournament after tournament where England fans... I've been there. I've been in Marseille where English fans were targeted by Russian fans who wanted to kicked the whatsits out of them, and the headlines were all, the English are a shame to our nation. You can't ban all England fans because there are a few bad apples, but this is precisely what's being stated by the West Midlands Police, by the government, and certainly by those Muslim politicians that were getting petitions rattled along.
Well, certainly. I mean, notwithstanding the point that I've just made, I hope to see the game go ahead. And for whatever the reason, the police cannot police it. I mean, fair dues, the police are operationally independent. The local safety group said that they thought there would be a problem. The police agree, and they say they don't have the resources to do it. Lisa Nandy, the Culture Secretary, has said in the House of Commons they're now trying to find the resources to make this game go ahead.
In a nutshell, Fardy, if the government stands by its guns and doesn't, if these fans aren't allowed to come, are you serious that there's a legal case against the police, against it?
Yeah, against the organisers. I'm not sure quite who has the final decision. It might very well be Aston Villa itself, the club, and the chairman of the club, but I just don't know where the final decision-making is. But usually the guidance from even the Equality and Human Rights Commission is where an event cannot take place without discrimination, then both sets of fans should not be able to attend. That is quite literally what is meant by the term equality, is that the equal treatment should extend to both not attending, and we can't have that. I mean, that's just completely cracking a nut with a sledgehammer.
Well, you could hold it behind closed doors, couldn't you?
Yes, so both not attending and doing it behind closed doors. And there's precedent for that. That has happened. That is the default position. But somehow we've gone past the default position and said, right, we just don't want you to attend.
All right, but that would be a loss for all of the fans, and that would be a complete and utter travesty. Fadi Farhat, thank you very much. Nigel Nelson, also thank you very much to you. Superb debates. Now, coming up, as Prince Andrew could become the first member of the royal family ever to be investigated by police for more than 20 years, with Virginia Giuffre's memoir out tomorrow, I'll be joined by the legendary royal journalist Tom Bauer. That's next.
Hello again, good evening. I'm here with your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Now, as we go through the rest of today and into tomorrow, there will be some further showers, some further rain at times, but also a bit of dry weather for some. The big talking point, though, currently is the low pressure that's across us. It's this that's been the driving force for the heavy, thundery showers some of us have had today, and also those strong, gusty winds in places too. But a lot of that is easing as we go through this evening and overnight. Not turning completely dry, though. A few showery bursts of rain here and there, and some more persistent rain pushing in from western parts of Scotland. But there will also be some clearer skies around, and so although most towns and cities will hold up in double digits, where you get those clear breaks, temperatures could take a bit of a drop, particularly over some eastern parts of Scotland. Could see a touch of frost, maybe even some fog in some parts, around Aberdeenshire, for example. But elsewhere, quite a murky start to the day, quite grotty with some cloud, which could be quite low. There'll be outbreaks of rain, not especially heavy, but perhaps some heavier bursts across some parts of Northern Ireland. And then across much of England and Wales, yes, there will be some early brightness, some sunshine around for quite a few parts, particularly towards the east, but also some further showery rain. Now, the showery rain is not going to be quite as heavy as what we've seen through today, so less chance of seeing any hail, some lightning, some thunder, but nonetheless, it will be a bit damp at times, and perhaps the heaviest showers will be across parts of Scotland where they could merge into some longer spells of rain. Otherwise, there are actually a greater chance of seeing the sun compared to today, and with that and slightly lighter winds, for many it is going to feel a little bit warmer. Now, as we go through into Wednesday, actually through the bulk of the day, Wednesday's looking largely fine for most places. A few showers towards the northwest, but lots of dry weather. However, later on we are likely to see some very wet weather pushing into the south, and that takes us into a very unsettled day for many places, particularly across England and Wales on Thursday, with very strong winds and heavy rain.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first.
Well, and that's what you get on GB News. Lively debates, lively conversation.
And we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pierce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News.
Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Dorby. Now, Prince Andrew faces a potential police investigation as the Metropolitan Police looks into the allegations that the Prince pressured a bodyguard to dig up dirt on Virginia Giuffre, the woman, of course, who accused him of sexual abuse. Now, he could become the first member of the royal family to be investigated by police for more than 20 years. And that posthumous memoir, of course, is set for release tomorrow. Who better to speak to than my next guest? I'm joined now by the royal biographer Tom Bower, as well as GB News' senior political commentator Nigel Nelson. Tom, a pleasure to have your esteemed company in the studio. What an absolute catastrophic mess.
Absolutely. And one has the feeling there's panic in the palace, rudderless leadership. Everything is causing huge damage to the royal family and to Britain, and it was all predictable months, if not years ago, ever since the Newsnight interview, which of course shouldn't have happened. And the palace has just let it trundle on until the Daily Mail on Sunday released the emails and all the rest. And there's so much more terrible, incriminating stuff to come. And where's it all going to end? One just realises that the king needs to take a firm hand. He's ill. He hasn't got good advisors. I think Prince William has been remiss in not stepping in and being more of an influence on his father. I think the cabinet secretary is invisible. The prime minister has done nothing. The great and the good, the wise men, the establishment of Britain is allowing the monarchy just to drift into an unbelievable quagmire.
Isn't the point that allegedly the Queen made a substantial payment, I believe £12 million, to a charity in the past to try and make this go away? That didn't work. A surrender or being advised or being told to sacrifice the Duke of York title, that won't make this go away either, will it? Because more revelations are guaranteed as sure as night follows day to come out about Jeffrey Epstein and Prince Andrew. Will this ever go away? And what does any form of resolution look like?
Well, I think it'll never go away in the sense of not in the immediate future until all the Epstein files are released, which is not yet on the horizon in America. It's interesting that so far only two Brits have really been incriminated, Andrew and Lord Mandelson. But on the other hand, there's a lot more to come out because...
But it's finished the careers of both of those people.
Yes, but Mandelson always comes back. But the whole point is that Epstein's email, the one that Andrew sent, which was revealed by the Mail on Sunday 2 weeks ago, Epstein would have replied. Must be a whole chain of emails between Andrew and Epstein. One just knows that Prince Andrew, unfortunately, is a congenital liar. And unfortunately, the king and his staff and his advisors didn't get a grip on this a lot earlier and say it's got to end. Parliament should strip Andrew of his titles. Andrew should be exiled. We've got to call a halt to this before the royal family's reputation is really very badly damaged.
OK, thank you, Tom. Just a reminder, if you're watching the show, Graham Linehan, the man of the moment, will be joining us in the final part of this show to talk about that sensational case against him dropped and the dropping of non-crime hate incidents. That's still to come on the show. Don't go anywhere. But before that, Nigel Nelson, Prince Andrew, the what's it that cannot be flushed, always causing a huge problem for the royal family. This was inevitably going to blow up like this. What can be done?
Well, I mean, I think Tom's mentioned the point where at the moment he's voluntarily given up his titles. Only Parliament can actually take them away. And the question is whether or not that is a good way of actually dealing with it. I disagree with Tom because I don't think it is. That the trouble about doing it through Parliament, through an Act of Parliament, is that MPs will be able to debate it. They can say anything they like under parliamentary privilege, and the result of that will be to the detriment of the King and the royal family. I think it's best handled where it is. The police are obviously investigating another aspect of it. If at the end of the day Andrew ends up as Mr. Andrew Windsor, that probably is the best solution. But I don't think Parliament should take part in that process.
Tom Bower, is there any foreseeable outcome where Prince Andrew could end up in prison?
I don't think so. I mean, that would be a shocking scenario. In the end, he's not accused of having committed a crime in Britain. Virginia Giuffre was over 17
when they allegedly had their sex. So
but that was illegal in the state of where it allegedly occurred.
But not in Britain. So I don't think so, and it's not a crime to lie. In that case, we'd have no celebrities left in Britain at all. So I think we've got to be serious about this. It's not a matter of destroying Prince Andrew as a human being. It's a matter of saving the monarchy. It's a matter now of helping the king organise his family, which is depleted. I mean, there's a whole problem of Prince Harry still as well on the horizon, always in presence, and actually make sure the royal family represents Britain and regains its popularity, which, unfortunately, at the moment, with the damage being done, is sliding a bit.
Tom Bauer, thank you. Excellent as ever. Nigel Farage, thank you very, very much. Now, of course, just to add, the Prince Andrew has previously and continues to deny any wrongdoing, of course, in this case. Now, coming up in a few moments' time, I'll be speaking to this man.
They told me I was under arrest, but because I was just so disgusted that I went nuts. I was absolutely infuriated. I said, do you know how you look to America? Do you know what America thinks of Britain at the moment?
Yes, the Metropolitan Police has sensationally dropped its probe into Graham Linehan, and the man himself will be joining me in just a moment's time for his first interview since this news broke. Don't go anywhere. That's next.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's an unsettled picture across much of the Mediterranean over the next couple of days, with heavy showers around, particularly across northern parts of Spain and Portugal, southern parts of France, northern parts of Italy, perhaps even some snow over the Alps too. Southern parts of Italy, parts of Greece and northern parts of Turkey faring better in terms of some sunny spells, and temperatures quite widely in the high teens or low 20s for many, but with a bit more dry weather around as we head through the second half of the week. Those temperatures on the rise into the low, potentially mid-20s.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
Only on GB News.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions. But every Friday night at 9 p.m, you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain. So he can say whatever he wants. A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country. There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor. Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, your host, Martin Daubry. Now, here's a reminder of the story that shocked the nation early today when Father Ted creator Graham Linehan was arrested by 5 armed guards at Heathrow for what he wrote online.
When I stepped off the plane, there were 3 policemen on one side, 2 on the other, just flanking the doorway. And as soon as I saw them, I said, "Don't tell me trans activists sent you," you know? And they just, I have to say, the policemen who picked me up were really decent, you know? They brought me to a quiet area where I wouldn't be embarrassed, and they told me I was under arrest. But because I was just so disgusted that I went nuts. I was absolutely infuriated. I said, "Do you know how you look to America? Do you know what America thinks of Britain at the moment?"
Of course, that was back in September. But earlier today, it emerged that the Metropolitan Police have now dropped all of its charges against the writer before the force announced it would no longer also investigate so-called non-crime hate incidents at all. I'm delighted to say I'm now joined by the man of the moment, Mr. Graham Linehan. Graham, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for agreeing to speak to us. And what must be a momentous day for you, a day of huge relief. First of all, Graham Linehan, tell us how you're feeling.
Well, you know, I would be more kind of relieved and excited about it had I not expected it to be dropped, because it was so absurd. The whole thing was so absurd. We just had the bail a hearing to get the bail conditions dropped, and the policeman who was in charge of the investigation didn't even turn up. So which the judge pilloried him for. But yeah, I mean, you know, it's so ridiculous, so absurd that I just thought wiser heads would prevail, you know.
And we had Lord Toby Young in the studio here, of course, president of the Free Speech Union, Graham. And I understand now you're about to get on a front foot yourself. You're going to take it to them. You're going to sue the Met.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, the health scare that I had while I was there was something that, you know, I think when they finally released me, I think they just were a bit nervous I'd die under their care. So it was, you know, and also it's a culmination of years of this kind of thing, you know, like trans activists are trans activists. They're very vindictive. They're very violent. They use all sorts of means to get people's home addresses and things like this. They don't need the police helping them. They don't need the police actually giving them, like I've now had 3 people tell me that the police did not know, that trans activists did not know their address until they gave it to police officers. And after that, trans activists did know their address. So something very, very strange is happening there. I'd like to get to the bottom of it, but I doubt we will. But we'll certainly, you know, I do think that they should be, you know, raked over the coals for basically acting as you know, a group of errand boys for trans activists. You know, it's not their job.
And on that point, Graham Linehan, of course, a quick double whammy today of breaking news. Non-crime hate incidents due to be dropped. The Met won't pursue them either. An astonishing number of those have been recorded by the coppers, 133,000 since they were introduced in 2014, 660,000 police hours wasted on snaffling around on social media. Are you convinced that today is the beginning of the end of this madness, or do you think it's just going to trundle along?
I think it'll trundle along for a while. The kind of abuse that the police were participating in is, you also see it in the way that my story is reported by, you know, for instance, today, I think on Radio 4, I was called all the usual names by the journalists. You know, my ability to work is still affected, you know. So for me, it just goes on, really, you know. But I'm glad at least I can. The police were one of the first things that were used against me by one of these guys, and they really frightened my wife when they came to our house. And so, you know, this is not just what we're suing them for. It's not just this one incident, in my mind. This is for everything they've done to me over the last 8 years. I went back to them with complaint after complaint. They never acted on them, and they let these men behave in the most, appalling way to their victims. And they should answer for it.
And Graham Linehan, in terms of the state of British policing, the state of free speech in this nation, do you think it just brings great shame upon our nation?
Well, you know, it's not good, is it? I mean, Americans already had the idea that England is a free speech, desert. And then when the first thing a bunch of Americans saw when the plane landed in the UK was a comedian being arrested, or a comedy writer, it's ridiculous. And so, I think it's been a bit of a unfortunate episode. Unfortunately for me, it has also helped cement my reputation, which has been blackened by trans activists down through the years. So, again, the police just don't need to be helping these men. They can abuse people, harass people without the actual long arm of the law helping them out.
Graham, do you think there's ever going to be a moment, millions of your fans would just wish that this could all go away? We could see you going back to TV writing. You're a genius at that. You're brilliant. People want that old Graham Linehan back. Can that happen?
Yeah, well, that's one reason why I'm over in Arizona. I'm writing away. We've finished the sitcom. I've just written a film. And I'm about to sit down and get going on another one, I'm enjoying myself. I have a bit of free space now because I know I won't be arrested at any moment. So it's easier to write. It's easier to relax. So, yeah, America's very good for me at the moment.
OK, Graham Linehan, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I really appreciate your time. Let's get straight now to the House of Commons. Nigel Farage is speaking on this evening's Chagos Islands debate.
When the honourable gentleman says you, he's referring to me. Perhaps he'd refer to the minister as the minister.
When the Americans realise that actually Mauritius are not a trustworthy nation, they're bankrupt, they need the money, they will not honour this treaty, then we'll be in a very different place. But I do ask the question about the role of our National Security Advisor, somebody very much in the news over the last few days, who seemingly was very happy that a trial against 2 alleged Chinese spies operating at times within this building had disappeared. Not only is he honouring the Labour manifesto, which is very soft on China, but apparently he's very for this Chagos deal. I would put it that this deal is un-British, it's against our national interest, there is no upside, there is no gain, and I can assure you that a future Reform government will not honour this treaty. End of.
Graham Stewart.
Thank you, Madam Chair. May I begin by referring the House to my interest, having observed the Mauritian elections last year as a guest of the Mauritius.
There we go. That was Nigel Farage there speaking in the Chagos Island debate. Just caught him in the nick of time. Mauritius is not a trustworthy nation, he said. The deal is un-British, against our national interests, and a future Reform government will repeal it. End of. Nigel Nelson.
Well, I don't like the idea of repealing treaties we've already done. That doesn't sound very British either. The whole point
Keir Starmer wants to repeal the Brexit referendum.
No, he doesn't.
He did before. 3 years.
He doesn't. What he talked about back in those days was a second referendum, which is completely different. In this particular case, no, we shouldn't go back on a treaty. I don't know whether Mauritius is trustworthy or not. But the important thing was we were going to lose the Diego Garcia base if we had not done something pretty quickly. That's because the international courts would have ruled that we don't own it.
OK, of course, State of the Nation is up next. So Jacob Rees-Mogg, Hove's interview, like a vision as always. You were listening intently there to Nigel Farage in the Commons. Mauritius is not a trustworthy nation, and a future Reform government would repeal this treaty. What's your reaction?
Well, first of all, I disagree with Nigel on his point that we'd have to follow the international court. We're not subject to that court. It ruled on an area where it didn't have jurisdiction because it was between us and a Commonwealth country, and when we signed up to it, we specifically excluded jurisdiction of relations between us and Commonwealth countries.
Later court actions would have been binding.
No, they wouldn't have been. There's no binding court in international law. There's no such thing as a binding international court. They don't exist, not since we left the European community. In terms of breaking the treaty, I don't think we should sign it. China, of course, is interested. I read something today that China's already trying to buy islands off the Mauritians before the deal's even done. So it becomes an operation for China, who the Labour Party is absolutely in bed with, as we see in the collapse of that spy trial. That Labour's sucking up to China. This is what it's all about. It's damaging to national security, and it ought to be stopped now.
Can I get your reaction, Sir Jacob, to the two huge breaking news stories this afternoon? Of course, you listened in there to Graham Linehan giving his first interview since charges against him were dropped, and also the cessation of the Metropolitan Police to pursue non-crime hate incidents. Are we finally seeing a return to common sense, or is that wishful thinking?
I think we need a change. We need the police to concentrate on individual actions and politicians to set what the policy for policing is. And we've got a confusion in operational independence for the police. Politicians shouldn't be saying, you know, you should go round and arrest that Nigel Nelson because he said something naughty. But what politicians should be saying is that the focus of attention should be on shoplifting, stabbings, murders, not on non-crime hate incidents. That shouldn't be a discretion for the police. They should focus on the individual level with policy set by accountable politicians.
So Jacob Rees-Mogg, of course, State of the Nation is up next. What's on your menu, sir?
Well, I'm going to start with a discussion on how you take away titles, because there's been a lot of talk about it without going into the detail. So I shall be going through the last Bill of Pains and Privileges introduced in 1820, which is one way of doing it, the last Act of Attainder, which went through in 1798, though that has pretty serious consequences, and the 1917 Deprivation of Titles Act, which was the way of doing it for Germans who were fighting against the Crown, to explain what can be done, and then we can discuss whether any of this is sensible or whether the declaration that's been made is sufficient.
Let's hope nobody listens in and decides to try and take away your title. So
taking away knighthoods is very easy.
Is it?
Yes.
Don't give any ideas. Nigel Nelson, you've been superb all day today. Thank you very much. Of course, State of the Nation is up next with Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. So happy to have got Graham Linehan on the show today. Finally, is it a breakthrough in common sense, or will the madness roll on? I'll be back tomorrow 3 till 6 p.m. Up next, State of the Nation with Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. Don't go.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hello again, good evening. I'm here with your GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. Now, as we go through the rest of today and into tomorrow, there will be some further showers, some further rain at times, but also a bit of dry weather for some. The big talking point, though, currently is the low pressure that's across us. It's this that's been the driving force for the heavy thundery showers some of us have had today, and also those strong gusty winds in places too. But a lot of that is easing as we go through this evening and overnight. Not turning completely dry, though. A few showery bursts of rain here and there, and some more persistent rain pushing in from western parts of Scotland. But there will also be some clearer skies around, and so although most towns and cities will hold up in double digits, where you get those clear breaks, temperatures could take a bit of a drop, particularly over some eastern parts of Scotland. Could see a touch of frost, maybe even some fog in some parts, around Aberdeenshire, for example. But elsewhere, quite a murky start to the day, quite grotty with some cloud, which could be quite low. There'll be outbreaks of rain, not especially heavy, but perhaps some heavier bursts across some parts of Northern Ireland. And then across much of England and Wales, yes, there will be some early brightness, some sunshine around for quite a few parts, particularly towards the east, but also some further